Hello everyone, I'm back. Sorry for the technological glitch that always happens with me. I believe I'm jinxed. But okay, here I am. All's good. Everything's great. So my name is Akshata. I am taking over Artcore Gallery's Facebook page today, and I'm going to talk about my art practice, myself, where I come from, my association with Artcore, and how I am dealing with this social isolation and the corona crisis. So yeah, let's begin. So my name is Akshata again, Akshata Naik. I live in Toronto, Canada now, but I was born and brought up in Mumbai, India. I moved to Baroda to study at the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, and that's exactly where the artistic director and the executive director of Artcore studied as well. So we share that connection. So yeah, thanks Zahir and Ruchita for having me over today. As I mentioned in the little promo video, anything and everything for the first time I've done in my life is with Artcore. I had my first international solo show with Artcore, and I'm doing my first Facebook Live with Artcore, so I'm super excited for being here today. Just to get back into my story, so I moved from Mumbai to Baroda at the age of 19 to study. I did my bachelor's and master's in visual arts, majors in painting at Faculty of Fine Arts, and then I taught at a university in Baroda for about 2.5 years. In the meanwhile, I was also awarded an art residency at De Montfort University in Leicester in the UK. And when one of my professors introduced me to Zahir Sheikh and Ruchita Sheikh, as they run this amazing not-for-profit art organization and a great gallery space very close to where I was doing my residency, so I came in touch with them, and since then they have been a great support to me. As I said, I had my first international solo show at Artcore, which was Bloody Boats, and that was the first time I had this huge installation. Something that they allowed me to do was to explore and experience and experiment with my art. So I'm very grateful for that. If you are aware of my artwork or art practice, you would be wondering, oh, where are those red bloody boats? You don't see them anywhere here. That's only because they are in quarantine too at this point, unless I'll take them out in summer or maybe in the fall at this point, where they're scheduled to be shown in a gallery, in a museum in Kitchener, Waterloo. But to talk about the current stuff that I am doing and that you see on the wall just behind me, this is my little studio corner in the new home. I just moved into this space about 10 days back. I know that sounds crazy, but we made the move in this crazy social isolation and corona pandemic times. It was exhausting, but we did it, and I'm here in my studio. Everything's great. So I could manage to put few of my current works and drawings, which I'm doing a lot these days, up on the wall in the studio for you to see. So my process, how that begins, is always through drawings. I know my work has changed a lot since in the bachelor's and then in my master's thesis. Anyone would remember seeing my work then would completely not recognize what I'm doing now, and I think I've experimented a lot with the way I make things or think about it. The concept and research and everything has changed so much, which I also believe is due to all the changes that has occurred in my life. I work on the themes of migration, immigration, war, and civil war crisis. So the Bloody Boats was always, it always started from this point of Syrian civil war crisis, but after moving to Canada and experiencing immigration and the whole process myself, it has become much more than just the Syrian warfare or just one specific country. It has become more about me, and when I explored it last year in the Nuit Blanche, which is one of the city of Toronto's largest art events that happens overnight in the city. I was showing Bloody Boats 2.0 at the Gladstone Hotel, and there were about 3,000 boats flooded in the gallery space. But this time I had another 1,000 pieces of paper ready for people to make their own boats, create their own piece, and share their stories and have those conversations while making that paper boat, because it is a bit of a process. As I hail from India, I thought paper boat was like anyone and everyone could make, but then when I moved to the other side of this planet, I realized that it's not very common, but it's still very common in many cultures, and how there are lack of toys and you end up making and creating stuff to play around with as a kid. So people engaged with it in about just 2 hours. I just ran out of like 1,000 papers, and the installation, how it looked initially, changed overnight. It wasn't my piece any longer. It was just everyone who came in there had their own reflection to that installation. So that was my personal touching moments of how I saw people interacting with my piece and see that impact of such an installation on the community. But during these times of social isolation, it still is very difficult to keep up with the same large-scale components of my work. I've gotten back to minimalize or have my little studio home workspace and do some digital works, which you could see it on my Instagram account or Facebook, and you can follow me on there. It's my first name Akshata, last name Naik, and it should be easy to find. But yeah, I know I talk a lot, but if you guys have any questions or concerns around, to feel free to put it in or chat in, and as I see it, I will start answering those as well. But to talk about my process, as you see in the one back here, it always begins from basic drawing. So this is just simple ink on paper, acid-free paper, and it's the red color that draws me in and has been symbolically representing my thoughts, my concepts, the way I feel. Red is a very powerful color, and at times it denotes love, but on the other side it also denotes anger, violence, and bloodshed. So it's very contradicting in my head as well, how I see and look at the world and the experiences that I have had. But moving to Canada, or even all the moves in my life, have been very meaningful. Since the age of 19, I left home and was in a hostel, living in a hostel in Baroda. So as a teenager, that meant a lot to me. And I've always looked at this definition, or have thought on this definition of what home or safe space means to me. So there's this little, I'm gonna move this a bit and show you a little birdhouse up there that you could see. That's a very symbolic representation of how any child or any person could connect to what home looks like. A very simple form, as boats represented or symbolically represented journey or migration. That piece or that form resonates home or safe space to me, and I believe a lot of people do connect to that. So I'm working around these issues of remembering home and what is home to me. In that, very much while I was doing this work, this pandemic has taken over all our lives, and it has got me thinking again what home or what remembering home means. As I feel at this point, home is where you are safe, or where you are, or where you could just be at this point. Thankfully and luckily, I have a great place to live in, work in, and I enjoy my art time. But besides art, if you want to ask what I do, I'm going to tell you that I wear multiple hats like any other artist. I have been arts educator, I've been an arts researcher, and also arts administrator at this point. In Toronto, I work as arts and cultural manager at the arts organization called Arts Etobicoke, as a programs and gallery manager, and look over all the online programs and physical programs that we used to have until a few weeks back. So do check their page out if you want to know more. If you're in Canada, you've joined in this conversation today, we do a lot of interesting stuff like Artcore does in UK, taking over their programs online and all the amazing stuff, providing platform to all the local artists and representing them even in this difficult times. So yeah, so if there are any questions, if you want to ask me anything or anything about that you see on the wall up here, this piece or this series I've titled it as Semblance for now. And what semblance means is a physical form of something which in real could be very different. So how I feel at this point is I know I feel something, but I don't really know what it really means or what it could mean in the future. So I have your question. Can you talk about how your process has changed, if at all, in the different places that you have lived in? Yes, I would say, oh, totally, yes. Even the usage of color. I used to paint a lot of mundane objects like chairs and glass bottles and whatnot lying around my studio while I was in the faculty. I had a beautiful studio space that I miss with all my other friends. The colors that I used was very sober. I would say green, a lot of green and yellow and earthen colors, but now that has moved to a very strong and bold red, which I also feel talks about a lot how I have changed personally. I was a very shy person or introvert, or wasn't that talkative, which you see me right now. And that has changed, or the way I've used colors is also reflects the personality that I own today. I've become super bold, strong, or just say that all the moves that I've made in life has made me like that. I do feel a little nervous even today, but a lot of people don't believe that. But yeah, I feel great to be here. And yes, hi Ruchita. And hey, hi Ray. I love the colors, very vibrant. Thank you so much. I have tried to move away from red couple times, but that doesn't really happen. I end up coming back to it. So I think it's still the fact that I'm in this whole journey of settling in as a newcomer in Canada, or this new home that I am making in for myself, is keeping me attached to red as a color that gives me power, reminds me of who I am, takes me also back to my roots in many ways, many ways. So yeah, if there's anything else you want to know, if you want to ask. If not, I will just keep on talking for another few minutes, as I love talking to people. That's another thing I do in my pastime, is to meet new people, meet as many new people as I can. And there have been instances after I moved to Canada where I've met some amazing personalities that have had influence on me big time. I've got amazing mentors, I've got amazing colleagues here that makes my settling in as a newcomer really smooth. I've got amazing office space, which I really miss. I can't go in there any longer, so I've just set up this little workstation, work table with my studio that you see in the video just now. And yeah, how or what, why, just keep coming all those questions and I would love to answer them. Okay, I'll just wait for you to process or think. And in the meanwhile, I was sharing about this these pieces, they are just simple drawings, but I do envision them to change into some large-scale installations in the future. Um, oh yes, can you talk about more on your project Home? Sure. Um, so remembering home is how I have titled it now. It may just change. I'm looking for a space to have the big installation of that what I have in my head. I've done a lot of digital renderings of what it would look like, but I'm still not very convinced of how it would all work. I'm kind of in the middle of the process, trying to work out, experiment. I do a lot of things. I then tend to reject and then move on to something else. But remembering home is more about how I feel at home and what's the definition of home to me. I've changed, including, okay, so in Canada, this is my fourth house that I am in. And before that, I've lived in other 4 houses. So the definition of home to me is safe space, but also something which is also very temporary, or impermanence is the word I would relate the most to home. Despite a lot of people work all their lives to create one home, one space that they could call their own. But in my case, I just feel each place that I've lived in, I have left a lot of memories, and I have also carried a lot of things from that place and move on to another one to create new memories, new families, new friends, and community around me. So that's a little bit on that piece. Here's another one. Are there meanings to your patterns in the center of the 2 pieces on the back wall? Do you mean these ones? Center of the 2 pieces. So these patterns, it just happened that I was scribbling, and that scribbling was at times due to frustration. That scribbling was at times that I was just daydreaming and my hand was simply moving. That happens to a lot of us. And there were some patterns that happened to take shape, and I was just kind of inquiring or making that inquiry of what would this mean, or what is this that I am getting drawn to, or what is this that my subconscious is reacting to, and I'm still kind of finding answers to it, but this is what it is in the physical form. Maybe something that is going on when in my head I'm not able to decipher or translate at this point. Heather here, yeah. Do you find difference in your work created in your safe space at home versus working in a studio? Is there a different process or style of working? Well, most of the times I've had my studio space in the home because I feel I can be messy without anyone judging me or anyone looking at the process while I'm into it, like in a very crazy manner. But there was a time when I was in a professional artist space, or like studios, back in Baroda. I was for a very brief time because I moved on to doing a full-time job in a university. I was teaching there. So that was quite brief interaction of a dedicated studio space to what my home studio space would look like. But I think I get comfortable pretty soon, and that's also because of how my nature has changed with this whole moving. I get comfortable in any and every space, and I'm also dealing with certain things and issues while you do that. It's weird, like there are some complications while I'm in the space that comes out in my process as something like this, which I'm not clearly very convinced of, but then I know I do have some ideas which may just come back, and I do a lot of back and forth. You will also see a lot of repetition in my forms or in my process, and I don't know if I've clearly answered your question, but I just got carried away in my thoughts and just answering what made sense. So I'm sorry if I've not clearly answered your question, but that's all I had to say on that. Hey, hi Jashan. Who else is here? Shama says, I love your idea of the impermanence of home. I believe that home is wherever you make it. That's true, and I think you've just put it amazingly, something that I'm not very great with words. I tend to repeat a lot of stuff, and that also comes in my work. I do a lot of repetition. But yeah, home is where you make it, right? And I think that's correct. But I still inquire a lot about what I have left behind. I've left behind my family, my friends who I was with since my childhood, and then in my college days I've left those behind. Although you can't really say you've left behind, but then in some way you do miss that connection when you are together in the same physical space. You meet few people every day. You're so used to being them around or being around them, and that completely changes how life takes you to another space, and then you're forced to make new friends and then have new people around and be comfortable around the new community that you are in. Having said that, I completely feel comfortable and amazing in this new home that I've made or still making in Canada. I've got some amazing people here, some great opportunities that came my way since I made the move. I know the move has always not been very smooth. There has been a lot of struggles and unsaid problems, or problems that you just forget once you've dealt with it. But I think that happens with anyone, everyone, all of us. It's just the way you deal with it. And one of that is all that we are dealing. One is right now the global pandemic, that we are all in this together. I know it's difficult to be creative and productive at this time, but I just push myself because I do not want to feel or like regret later that, oh yes, I did have time and I just sat and did nothing. I might as well use that to create something, or something that I can be proud of later. And oh yeah, I did make use of that time that I had. Even if it's like frustration or anger or you're feeling sad, it could always come out through your work, is what I believe, and that has been happening. It doesn't make sense at that very point, but later on when I connect, it's like connecting dots, and then it's your work, right? It's my work. I have created it. It has to connect. It has to make sense in some way to what I've done in the past and what I would do in the future. So that's how I look at that. Sorry, I'm just gonna scroll down. And yes, hi Sherville, hi Nivedita. Jashan asks me, are you working on a new large-scale project like the paper boats recently, or are you planning to do that? So yes, I do plan to do that. My large-scale installations are always space dependent, or depended on what kind of space or environment I am showing in, or the audience that would be interacting with it. So it begins with a small idea like this maybe, and I'm trying to figure out what it means and how that could be something that people could react or interact or be a part of on a larger scale when I put it out. So I'm thinking of like red wire mesh, or like the mosquito net, and that again resembles home, and then protection and like protective, and then things like that. I don't know, all the weird things that comes into my head and trying to put that together and see what I could make out of it. But I am for sure looking forward to bringing on some large-scale installations in the future. Who knows, Artcore has a new space now. Bloody Boards that I had put on at Artcore was at 3 Charnwood gallery space, and maybe in the future I show in the new gallery space with new installation. So yeah, I am up for any of those new challenges and opportunities both. The show which is coming up in the summer, which still is coming up in summer if everything goes well, but if not, it will be just postponed, is at the museum in Kitchener-Waterloo. Is another edition of Bloody Boats, but this time it's boats with 1 million holes, where I have tried to deconstruct the constructed paper boats by punching holes in it and then playing around with the light and shadow effect of seeing how it has put in so many holes in my life, how this migration or journey, and not just me, everyone who's ever migrated from one place to another, not necessarily be it a country or a specific refugee experience, but I know a lot of people have moved just to do a new job, or they bought a new home which is far from where they used to live or where they were born. So all kinds of migration, and migration is not just physical, it's also how you take it emotionally and mentally, how that affects you internally, is how I talk about it on a much generic or larger scale through my words. Have I missed any questions? Thank you, Ruchita, and I feel amazing to be here. So thank you once again, Artcore Gallery, for having me here. Do follow them for more updates. They're doing some amazing online programs during this time of social isolation. Check them out, and if you want to follow me, look for me on Facebook with Akshata Naik, or on Instagram as Akshata Naik. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.